right, it looks like it's 3 o'clock. So welcome everyone to the Byrne SCIP Introduction to Training and Technical Assistance webinar. Before we get started this afternoon, I have a couple of housekeeping items that I want to cover. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available after the webinar is over. And then second, there is an option to turn on closed captioning at the bottom of your screen if that's something that you need. So with that, I want to welcome you and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Next slide. During today's webinar, we're going to cover an introduction to OJP and BJA, as well as a brief overview of the Byrne SCIP program implementation. The Byrne SCIP TTA providers will then introduce themselves and the assistance available, and we're going to wrap up with time for questions and answers. So next, we're going to start with a few introductions. I'm Erin Phelps, a division chief with BJA, and joining me is State Policy Advisor Andrew Radiguero, Grant Manager for the Byrne SCIP Awards. We also have representatives from each of our TTA providers who will introduce themselves and their projects as we move forward in the webinar. Next slide, please. Oh, here are the introductions, so we can move on to the next slide. As we get started, we wanted to provide a brief overview of OJP and BJA. The Office of Justice Programs is one of 3 grant-making components of the Department of Justice, along with OVW and COPS. And the purpose of the Office of Justice Programs is to provide grant funding, training, research, and statistics to the criminal justice community. And within OJP, there are 6 different components, including BJA, the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Next slide. Within OJP, BJA operates to provide leadership and services through grant administration and criminal justice policy to support state and local strategies to achieve safer communities. BJA is led by the director, Carlton Moore. And next slide. And BJA provides funding, research and development services, the creation of tools and products and partnerships in order to support the field. The next slide. I'm now going to turn it over to Andrew to talk about Byrne SCIP award implementation.
Thanks, Erin, and good afternoon, everybody. Before we introduce the TTA providers, I'm going to touch briefly on the Byrne SCIP program and BJA's approval process of the budget and program plans. Next slide, please. Oh. You're fine, I apologize. Can you go back one? The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act amended the JAG statute to include some of the additional program areas. These additional areas include, but are not limited to, the Extreme Risk Protection Order, mental health, drug treatment, and veteran court programs. The Act also expanded the authorization to include civil proceedings, and it appropriated $150 million for 5 years for the State Crisis Intervention Court Proceedings and Related Programs Initiative, also known as Byrne SCIP. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to discuss the program and budget plans a little bit. The majority of SCIP grantees are either currently in the development of these plans or in the beginning phases. So when reviewing the program and budget plans, we're looking for a number of items, including the goals for your SCIP program, information on the SCIP advisory board, which includes the necessary membership, the plans for making subawards, and also confirmation that the advisory board coordinated and approved these plans. For the budget plan, which can be integrated into the program plan, BJA needs to see an explanation of admin costs, a breakdown of the required cost categories as outlined on the allocation list, and both should be submitted in Just Grants as a scope change GAM. Next slide, please. I know this may be a little difficult to see, but we did include a link to the full document there on the left. So this is the allocation chart I previously mentioned. This shows the required direct local pass-through, which must be subawarded to local jurisdictions, as well as the less than $10,000 pass-throughs. Only the less than $10,000 pass-throughs are eligible for a waiver. The direct local pass-through must be provided to units of local government. We've also seen some confusion around the administrative cost amounts. So this maximum admin amount is to be taken out of the state share of the award that you'll see in column B. Next slide, please. So for those programs who have elected to direct funding toward ERPO-related initiatives, at a minimum, 4 program requirements must be met. Number 1, we want to ensure that due process rights are in place to prevent violations of the U.S. Constitution. Number 2, that there's a right to be represented by counsel at no expense to the government. Number 3, that there are heightened evidentiary standards. And number 4, there are penalties for abuse of the program. Next slide, please. Once a program and budget plan are submitted and approved by BJA, grantees will receive a notice and just grants for the GAM and the associated withholding removal. The withholding condition releases those funds not already authorized for the development of the program and budget plans. It's important to note that any changes will require authorization from the advisory board and approval via GAM. Next slide, please. If you are still working on your program and budget plans, we want to make sure you update your project description when you submit them for approval. If you've already received approval for your plan, please go ahead and submit a scope change GAM, selecting changing the purpose of the project as justification for the GAM. Next slide, please. So the updates to the project descriptions are displayed on our OJP and BJA websites and populate data in the FY23 grant award list. BJA wants to ensure that this data is as accurate and up to date as possible. You can see a sample of the table for the Byrne SCIP awards and the link to the worksheet on the left. Next slide, please. So in addition to the program and budget plans, all subawards must also be approved by BJA through a GAM. We ask that the grantee provide a document on agency letterhead signed by the authorized representative, summarizing the selection process and listing the applicant and/or applicants. The application summary should include a description of the project and/or projects, the budget, and the period of performance for the subawards. Next slide, please. And then finally, here's a list of various resources BJA has offered that provide some excellent information on the SCIP program requirements, along with my contact information. I know some of you may have previously had a different BJA contact for this award, but you can see some of my contact information below, but you can also find that under your Just Grants award. Next slide, please. At this point, I'm going to hand it back to Erin for the introduction of our TTA providers.
Thanks, Andrew. And we're going to move into the meat of our presentation now as we talk about training and technical assistance for the Byrne SCIP program. Next slide, please. So the Byrne SCIP program includes 3 different training and technical assistance categories: developing and supporting extreme risk protection order programs, and our TTA providers, the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions. The second category is supporting state, local, and tribal courts implementing safer communities, with the TTA providers, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And the third category is implementing safer communities, training and technical assistance with NCJA's Center for Justice Planning. The link on this page will allow you to request TTA from any of the providers, and it's available at no cost to both grantees and sub-grantees in the program. We're going to repeat this slide at the end of the deck just to make sure everybody is able to copy that link, but just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that that is available. So to go deeper into the available services, I'm first going to turn it over to Allison Badger to introduce NCJA. Allison?
Hello, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. Awesome. I'm seeing head nods. It's so great to see everyone. So my name is Allison Badger. I am the director for NCJA's Center for Justice Planning. And there are several other NCJA folks on the call today. So we have Simone Green, who's the deputy director, Mike Farjan, who is the director of the NCJA Data Center. Oops. See, I can't move slides and talk at the same time. Too hard. No, I'm just kidding. Jessica Grisler, who is a program manager who will be supporting this project. We also have Chris Asplin, who is our executive director, and Elizabeth Pike on the call. And I believe I saw Amanda Blasco. So lots of NCJA folks on today. And we're just really thrilled to be one of your 3 TA providers. So for those of you who may not be familiar with us, we are a nonprofit organization based in DC. However, we have staff all over the country. We are actually fully remote. And so we have program managers everywhere, and it makes it actually really nice for you all since you're all over the country and we can easily meet your needs. We represent state, local, and tribal governments from the criminal and juvenile justice communities. Our purpose is to strengthen criminal justice communities and improve lives by empowering stakeholders through training, collaboration, and advocacy. We have sort of these 4 pillars. We are a convener and facilitator, an advocate and liaison, a thought leader, and a training and technical assistance provider. And we're going to focus on that TTA component today. Many of you may know we are the longstanding federal TTA provider for Byrne JAG. So just to plug, if you have any needs in Byrne JAG, please reach out to us as well. Okay, so our goals at a very high level of the TTA for Byrne SCIP are to support grantees in gathering sufficient information to meet the reporting requirements. We are planning to help with data collection and preparation for a potential participation in an evaluation, which will be coming in the future of the program. And we will also be assisting in coordination among the SAAs, you all, and the other TTA providers and BJA. And one other thing I want to mention is that it is anticipated in October that we will be able to expand some of our TTA in the strategic planning space for Byrne SCIP. So much like what we do on the Byrne JAG side, we anticipate soon being able to help in some of the planning needs that will happen with Byrne SCIP as well. Some of the types of TA are direct assistance, helping Byrne SCIP recipients and subrecipients build capacity to collect and report data, prepare the SAAs who are receiving SCIP funds for the participation in the evaluation. We are here to help assist you in planning with your Byrne SCIP advisory boards. And another thing that's not on here is the development of a resource website for all 3 TA providers to have a central sort of hub for resources in support of all of the projects that you will be funding. Our project partners are the wonderful TA providers on this call. And then we have a sort of a list of subject matter experts in different spaces that we can always tap into if you have needs in that space within our TA program. So we always have some SMEs on hand that can really help target certain needs that you may have. So keep that in mind as you navigate this new funding. And I am going to go on mute.
Thanks, Allison. Next up, I will hand it over to Lisa Geller to introduce the National ERPO Resource Center. Lisa?
Thanks, Erin, and thanks to everyone for joining today. My name is Lisa Geller, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Implementation at the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions. I'm joined by my colleague, Spencer Cantrell, who I will introduce in a moment when I pass the second half of our slides over to her. But we are thrilled to be here today to talk about the National ERPO Resource Center and our role in providing training and technical assistance through this grant program. So next slide, please. As I mentioned, Spencer is here. We also have Josh Horowitz on the call as well. Josh is not only the co-director of our center at the Center for Gun Violence Solutions, but is the principal investigator on this project. We also have Dr. Shannon Frateroli as the other co-principal investigator. So this is our team of 4 that is going to be leading the training and technical assistance for Johns Hopkins. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions is a center housed within the School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins, specifically in our Department of Health Policy and Management. We are a team of academics, we have researchers, we have attorneys, we have other public health professionals, and we also do advocacy at our center. But what Spencer and I and Josh and Shannon are doing is the implementation side of the research to policy pipeline. But broadly, our center identifies gun violence as a public health emergency. And what we do is we use evidence-based research to develop solutions to gun violence, including extreme risk protection orders. And that research informs our advocacy and implementation efforts. We support evidence-based policies only and will only prioritize that work at our center. So we're really excited. We've been working on extreme risk protection order implementation for a decade, since the first modern day extreme risk protection order went into effect in California in 2014. And we are just thrilled to have dedicated funding now from BJA to do this work all over the country. So what does that mean? Next slide, I will get into some of the specific goals of our training and technical assistance before handing it over to Spencer to talk more about the types of TTA provided. So the Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center at Johns Hopkins is going to be working with all of the categories listed here to improve implementation of extreme risk protection orders. We're already working with a number of these groups. We've already been working with some of the SCIP grantees that are on this call, but we're going to be working with law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, judges, and other judicial officers, clinicians, all the categories here, to ensure that all of those groups that have a role to play in implementing extreme risk protection orders know what the laws are, know what needs to be included in their ERPO implementation, and they know the best ways to utilize the funding that's available through the Byrne SCIP programs. So I will turn it over to Spencer. I know we want to allow a lot of time at the end for specific Q&A, but I will go next slide to talk about the specific TTA. And Spencer, if you want to do more of an intro of yourself, feel free.
Hi, thanks so much, Lisa, and everyone else on the call. So a little bit more about what we're able to do at the National ERPO Resource Center is to provide trainings to folks in your communities that are working on ERPO implementation. We're able to develop and disseminate those trainings. We're able to provide other implementation support that might be helpful to you and your jurisdictions. We can also support peer-to-peer engagement with model learning sites. We've identified a few jurisdictions across the country that are really leading the way in successful ERPO implementation. And so we're also happy to help connect folks with those other experts for that peer-to-peer learning. We're also going to be performing site assessments, so looking at what you're doing in your jurisdiction for ERPO implementation, and where requested, helping figure out opportunities for improvement and collaboration to improve implementation. We'll also be developing presentations and webinars that will advance states and localities' knowledge on key ERPO topics. And this will vary depending on who's really leading implementation in your jurisdiction. Some of the questions that we've already gotten as part of our responsive training and technical assistance are reviewing and assisting with state plans, speaking to a state group of judges or law enforcement. Next week, Lisa and I are training a group of prosecutors around a state. So happy to do those kinds of trainings. And if someone is working on the ground on ERPO and is siloed, we're happy to help talk to them about best practices and connect them. Next slide, please. Some other project activities include developing and disseminating an Implement ERPO website. This website will have state-specific information about each state's ERPO law or whatever the law is called in that state and jurisdiction, as well as some guides for different audiences that Lisa outlined earlier, so that judicial officers, physicians, law enforcement, attorneys, and others have the resources and information that they need. As I've discussed, we'll also be having trainings for those. This fall, we'll be launching a community of practice, which will be a group of experts from all around the country that are wanting to learn collaboratively from one another and from other ERPO experts to become what Lisa and I call the next generation of ERPO champions. So we'll be disseminating more information about that in the coming months, along with BJA and our fellow TTA providers. And then, like I said, we also provide that responsive technical assistance. And so Lisa and I are happy to meet with folks and answer your questions about ERPO implementation. Next slide, please. Like was discussed earlier by Andrew, there are also some due process protections that are important for states to consider and critical to incorporate into all of the ERPO activities that are being done under Byrne SCIP. And so we wanted to just be sure to call your attention to these due process protections as outlined in the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So these include the rights for the respondent, the right to notice, the right to an in-person hearing, the right to an unbiased adjudicator, which would be a judicial officer, the right to no opposing evidence, the right to present evidence, the right to confront adverse witnesses, the right to counsel, as well as there are penalties for abuses of these ERPO programs, which in some states is explicitly listed in the ERPO statute, and in other jurisdictions would be covered by the state's perjury laws. So that is a little bit of a high-level overview regarding the due process protections that we want to make sure folks are incorporating into their state plans and their work going forward. And I'll pass it back to you, Erin.
Actually,
Spencer, thank you so much. I was going to hand it over to Erin Branch of NCJ FCJ to carry us forward. Erin?
thanks, Erin. That's been happening to me since elementary school when every room has 14 errands. So I'm Erin Branch. I work with the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. I'm a director in our Family Violence and Domestic Relations program. And we are just ecstatic to be in this room with you all. Finally, we're meeting the people we get to work with and provide technical assistance to. It's going to be so fun. But I also wanted to thank BJA because we're just so pleased that we get to do proactive planning with you all about the importance of having judges involved in your project. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. So we can go to the next slide so I can introduce the folks I get to work with. The council has a huge staff, but on this project, I'll be working with my friends and colleagues, Nancy Hart and Darren Mitchell, and I hope each of them will chime in and say a little something as I'm talking and specifically as we're answering questions. But Nancy and Darren and I have worked for many years together on lots of projects intersecting with the with courts and public safety, firearms. And I did want to say also that we've worked for many years with our friends and colleagues at Johns Hopkins to make sure that any guidance that the council is providing to courts that may address firearms is consistent with what they're learning about firearms and ERPOs. So we're just pleased to be working in concert with them. And any technical assistance you received from our team would be done in close collaboration with all of the folks that you see on the line today. So next slide, please. So I don't know how familiar the council is to everybody on the line, and you will hear me talk about the council as either the council or NCJ FCJ, and there is no judgment if when you call or write to us, you get 3 or 4 of those words right. We will find the right organization. It's a long name. But the National Council is actually a membership organization, and one of the things that I think is really lovely about that is that we tend to attract people who are practicing judges who either have taken a leadership role and have much to share with the country about how to do well in their courts and communities, or we attract people who are sometimes new to the judiciary and they want to be learning how to be good leaders and how to be seated in their community so that they can facilitate good outcomes for children. So the council has a tendency to be at the forefront of a lot of social justice movements and changes in criminal justice and family courts as well. So you can look to us to be one source for connection to how might other judges work on this? How might other communities have involved their judges to work on projects like this, and why is that an effective way to work in collaboration? So NCJ FCJ has a lot of expertise that's about not only law and policy, but also practice. We take a lot of pride in taking our ideas into real communities and trying those ideas. So, so we hope that you are some of those communities that we get to brag about in a couple of years. Next slide. So our project partners, as you saw, include Johns Hopkins and the NCJA, and we just could not be more excited about that. I would add, though, that we have put together quite a robust advisory group to make sure that as we're bringing support to judges and courts in addressing the goals of your projects, that we also have people from law enforcement, mental health advocacy organizations, experts in criminal defense and court management, because we know that judges depend on their colleagues from these fields also. So we want to make sure we're giving you the best guidance that we can. The other reason that we have a tendency to build large advisory groups like this is that we know that every community is going to have a plan very specific to your interests and needs. And we want to make sure that we can respond to those in very specific ways. And the only other thing that I would add is that we think this is important to have a robust group like this, because through our technical assistance, we are going to be looking at individuals in crisis. And that might include individuals where an ERPO is appropriate, but it might be much, much broader. And we want to make sure that we're helping courts respond adequately. So, next slide, we'll talk quickly about our goals of this project, and then I'll hand it over to my colleagues. But the goal of the Safer Communities Court Capacity Project is to develop resources and mechanisms through which state, local, and tribal judges and courts can obtain expert guidance, training, and TA in support of coordinated and effective state crisis intervention court proceedings, ERPOs, and related gun violence reduction initiatives. So I just would call out to you how broad this is. And as you're considering what kind of technical assistance you may need from us, I want to just encourage you by sharing with you that often technical assistance comes to us by way of saying, I don't have any judges that I work with, but I think I should. Could I get some help? Or there's a judge that seems like they might be interested, but I don't know quite how to talk to them about their role in a project like this. Can you facilitate that conversation? So I just would encourage you to think broadly and to ask questions about how judges may be involved in your project. And Darren's going to go ahead and walk us through some of the specifics of that kind of technical assistance. But again, just to please see us as real people on the end of a real email and a coffee cup who are just eager to talk to you about what's happening in your community and how we can further your work. So Darren, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. Wonderful to be with you. I'm Darren Mitchell. I'm a fellow with the council, NCJ FCJ. And Erin, I think, has told you enough about our background. I'm going to dive right into a conversation around the types of TTA that we anticipate being engaged with you all in. And just an initial note, these are what we think, what we're anticipating to be the types of training and technical assistance that we'll be providing you all. We know that as we move forward, the council, working closely with Johns Hopkins and with NCJA, and of course with BJA, will continue to shape the project as we learn more and as folks start asking questions and seeking our assistance. And you could tell from the list of partners that we have and the way Erin described the work that the council does, you can kind of think of us as the court and judges folks in this project, but the fact is the way we engage in the work is highly collaborative and highly multidisciplinary. So you can be almost guaranteed that if folks reach out to us with an issue in terms of reaching out with the court or trying to engage some judicial leadership, that we're going to be asking questions and helping you explore how others in both within the court community, but also outside the court community can play a role in whatever you're trying to achieve. We come at this as we look at judicial leadership as being an important aspect of all this, but certainly doesn't solve all the problems. We really need full engagement and buy-in from all the key partners. So that's how we come at this. And in terms of the types of TTA that we anticipate, I'll talk about the kinds of help we want to provide to you all as the state administrating agency representatives. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we can do to help subgrantees and folks in the communities trying to do some of this work. And so one of the really important messages we want to send is that courts really have an important role to play in this area of identifying people within court processes who may be in crisis, whether it's as a result of firearms and the risks and dangers posed by firearms access, or other things, including mental health and other challenges that people are facing. And so we want to help you to think about how you can engage court partners, judges, court administration in partnership to address some of these issues. And for many of you, I know courts are not the first folks that you work with or that you typically work with. We want to help you think about what the opportunities are and what the pathways to really successful partnership can look like, because we've done this with courts all around the country in a lot of different arenas. We're going to help you also identify what the needs are of folks in the court systems, both the court personnel and judges, but of course the people who are court involved, what their needs are and what the opportunities are to start to identify, assess, and then address folks who are in crisis by, either making referrals, warm handoffs to local or community organizations, engaging with treatment courts or other court interventions that may be available, the sort of whole panoply of responses that are available. And courts are such a great nexus to figure that out because a lot of folks within your court systems are experiencing or in crisis for a variety of potential reasons. And we are really talking about courts writ large. So we're talking about criminal courts of all types. We're talking about civil courts, family courts, courts that focus on domestic violence, juvenile courts. We are trying to be, we're trying to provide assistance to any court involved individuals who are in crisis to the extent that it's possible for courts to play an active role in that process. Part of what we're doing and what we'll help you all with is doing kind of a national landscape, a bit of an assessment of what's out there. And we've been really excited to learn over the last few weeks about some really interesting programs and the placement of behavioral health focused professionals in court systems and the important role that they can play both on a statewide or territory-wide basis, but also within individual courts, rules for folks who have a behavioral health background who can help in a lot of ways beyond just assessing whether people are competent to stand trial, for instance, in criminal cases. There are lots of opportunities that we're really excited to learn more about and then share with you all as the administering agencies for the SCIP program. Next slide, please. When we talk about the sort of more on the ground work and your subgrantees, we're mostly focused, of course, on courts and judges and other allied professionals. And of course, many people work in and for courts. So it's a broad range of disciplines there. What will help in these instances are things like, we know the importance of peer-to-peer sharing and mentoring from folks that kind of have some things figured out, directed towards people who are still struggling and grappling with issues. That kind of peer-to-peer information exchange and mentoring we have found to be incredibly helpful across all the areas that we work in. So we'd like to facilitate that for you all as well. We play a role in facilitating interdisciplinary gatherings and convenings of folks that identify court and community needs, and then of course develop either improve programs or develop new programs and practices. And also, we have a lot of experience working in court settings with court allied professionals and folks from the community to identify challenges and then work together to come up with plans to address those challenges. So we anticipate that kind of work as well around people who find themselves in crisis and are court associated or court involved. In addition, we've been tasked with developing an assessment tool to measure different courts' capacities across the country to, as I mentioned a couple of times now, identify people who are in crisis whether they're part of whether they're involved in a court proceeding, they're there as a litigant, a witness, or have other involvement, to identify folks who are in crisis, do some assessment within the courthouse, within the court systems, to figure out what's going on, and then respond effectively to those folks who are in crisis. And I mentioned the warm handoffs to different partners and things like that, including, of course, firearms or related risk of harm that's posed by people, whether they're the person who has access to the firearm, and that's the source of the crisis, or they're the person against whom threats have been made or harm has been caused by firearm threats or use of firearms, which is an area that the council, and specifically Erin, Nancy, and I have many years of experience helping courts and other allied professionals address. So that's our broad overview. As I said, it's tentative. It's going to be shaped as we work our way through the projects, as we see your state plans, and of course, as we are engaged in conversation with you all and with our partner organizations. Well, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for sharing that important information. And now we're going to move on to the question and answer portion of the webinar. So we have a lot of time left. Please feel free to share your question in the meeting chat, to come off mute and ask any of us any questions that you have. And as everybody's kind of putting together their first questions, there are a couple that came in advance that we could kick things off with. So one of the questions we received ahead of time was, does BJA have any guidance or resources around the research component allowed by the grant and what the evaluation component might entail? So for the larger program evaluation, we don't yet have guidance on what that may include. That's something that we're working on and we'll share once it's available. And then for any evaluation activities proposed within the grant project, NCJA is available to provide TA on the development and implementation of those projects. Right. Let's see, I don't see anything in the chat yet. So another question that we received in advance, we had a couple regarding project plans, subaward approvals, things like that. So first, is there a template for the project plan? So no, we do not have a template available, but we do have sample, we're happy to share examples of a few approved plans. So please just reach out to myself or to Andrew, and we're happy to make connections and send that over to you. And then we were also asked about the expected turnaround time for project plan and subaward approvals. So obviously turnaround time is dependent on a lot of things, including whether we have any questions or if there's any back and forth. But we are working to prioritize the review and approval for both project plan and subaward approvals. And as we've kind of moved Byrne SCIP into one team, we've definitely been able to speed up the process. And then around subaward approvals, we received a question about whether they should come in as batch requests or if they should be one at a time. And in that case, it is whatever is easiest for you as the grantee. We are happy to review batch requests, but we are also happy to review them one at a time, or a combination depending on what works best for your state and your subawards as they come in. So it looks like we did receive a question. Is technical assistance involvement a requirement of the grant? Can other TTA providers be utilized? So we do encourage everybody to take advantage of the training and technical assistance. There will be pieces, especially around the evaluation, where we do expect you to participate with any questions that come out. However, that being said, as part of the development of your program plan, as part of your advisory board work, you are, of course, welcome to work with any other organizations that can assist in the process of development. So if you have specific questions on that, or if there's anything specific that you wanted to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. Any other questions at this point? One other question that we did receive in advance, is there guidance on how states should address the due process protections in their project plans? So OJP is currently working to provide additional guidance, which we expect to have available very shortly. However, please don't pause work on the project plan. We are still moving forward with reviewing and providing feedback, and we do recommend when addressing due process protections to review the requirements carefully, map against your state law. Any other questions? Contact information for TA again. Yes, if we could switch to the next slide. Here you have the link to request TTA. I think we ended. Okay. The link to request TTA, and just as a reminder, this is available both for SAAs and for subgrantees as those subawards go out. So make sure to share that with your subawardees as well. Allison, thank you. Allison added that to the chat as well. So you can copy and paste the link. Or I'm sorry, that was Andrew. I saw the A. Other questions?
I was prepared to take credit for it.
So squinting at the chat and trying to read things quickly. My apologies. If we don't have any other questions from the other presenters, was there anything else that you wanted to share at this time or anything else that you think would be beneficial? If not, we are happy to take any questions. You know, please reach out, email, call us, submit TTA requests. We're happy to answer any questions that come in. We really appreciate your time this afternoon. We're really excited to share the TA opportunities for the program. And, you know, we appreciate all the work everybody has been doing on this program. For a copy of an approved program plan, please reach out to Andrew and myself. We can share that. But if you reach out to one of the TTA providers, we can definitely coordinate with them as well. So really, any way you reach out, we will be able to get back to you. As I said at the beginning, the recording will be available after the webinar. And once again, thank you all for your participation this afternoon, and please let us know any questions that you have.